Accidental tumble, just wisdom you don't wanna miss. Now my pal Sal, take it away.
All right, welcome, my holy sisters and brothers. We've got an amazing guest today on the AT show. We're actually recording the AT podcast, and that's what this is ultimately going to be for. But I am thrilled to welcome Nas Yassin onto the show. Welcome, Nas.
Sal, it's an honor. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to have a memorable conversation.
Oh, I have no doubt we're going to have a memorable conversation. Let me introduce you to the audience. Nas is Nas Yassin. He's fluent in Arabic, Hebrew, and English. He left Israel in 2010 to attend Harvard University on a full scholarship. Very impressive. Where he graduated in 2014 with degrees in economics. Did you have a minor in computer science? Did I see that?
Minor. Doesn't really count.
Took some classes. And later, he started Nas Daily, a Facebook page documenting his travels and experiences around the world. In 4 years, he garnered an international audience of over 26 million followers in 197 countries across all platforms. Now he is the founder and CEO of Nas Daily Limited, a media company based in Singapore with global operations. Nas Daily specializes in social media content that is engaging, effective, and meaningful, I have no doubt, because his whole trip has been about bringing meaning to the world. And in addition to producing media for clients, the team aims to teach people how to create videos effectively through the Nas Academy. At the end of the day, Nas means people in Arabic, and people are at the center of everything Nas does. Welcome.
Wow. Who wrote that? I got to give them a raise.
All right. Well, let's wind the clock back a little bit, Nas. Tell me a little bit about growing up. What was your family and hometown situation?
Oh, wow. Growing up politically, socially, emotionally. Which one?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're not going to write a novel here, but give me some broad strokes.
Look, it was good. It was good. Wasn't rich, wasn't poor. Thank God for middle. Grew up in a very complicated area in the world. It's like you grow up and all of a sudden you're like, why this place?
So where were you?
Guy in the world. So I grew up in Araba, which is next to Nazareth. So next to Jesus. So northern Israel, but I also grew up as Palestinian Muslim Israeli, which is it was kind of an odd combination. I didn't fully comprehend it until I was 16 or 17 years later, how unique it was and how rare it is to be born as part of sort of two people that are at war. But overall, I think I had a good childhood. Like I was never poor.
I mean, did you have a diverse group of friends? Was everyone like you, or is it all mixed up, like American melting pot style?
I had no friends. There is no melting pot in a village with 100% Arabs.
Okay.
There's nothing to melt.
There was no diversity.
There was no diversity. Everyone looked like you. Everyone looked like me. Everyone thought the same. Everyone did the same. That's why in my high school, 95% of my classmates are now doctors. What does that tell you about diversity?
Okay, so it was a small and not diverse group, but it was highly educated and ambitious, is what I'm hearing you say.
There is a focus on education, yes. There's a huge focus on it's all about getting respect as well and getting status in the community. So lawyer, engineer, and doctor. I think that's the crowd I was part of. Mm-hmm. And then there's also the other crowd, which is socioeconomically disadvantaged. I was very lucky that my dad was the only one out of 10 siblings to actually get a degree, an education degree, like a psychology degree, and because of that, I think I was part of the second half of my village.
Okay, and. So the idea eventually to go to Harvard, that's not something you grew up with? That's something you sort of discovered later, or?
Yeah, that's not, unfortunately, that's not something we think about, applying to U.S. colleges is expensive, and leaving your hometown is also not recommended in terms of settling somewhere else or immigrating somewhere else. So I wanted to apply to Harvard. To be honest with you, is because I was fascinated with the American dream, and I love the idea that in America you can be anything you want. With the recent developments, it's obviously there's some cracks in the American dream. But yeah, Harvard for me I applied to it not because I said, oh, I'm smart, I belong to Harvard. No. It was just, they can give you money. That's the only reason. Right?
You heard about the huge endowment.
Yes, literally. I wanted to go to Purdue University in Indiana. And then, I asked them, hey, like, what's the tuition? They said $40,000 a year. I'm like, bye-bye. I'd rather study in Israel. And so Harvard and 7 other universities give you a scholarship, even if you're an international student. And that's why I wanted to apply to these places.
Yeah, it's a blessing. I'm a fellow alum like you. And
Right.
one of the beautiful things about Harvard is if you can get yourself in, they'll find a way for you to go there. They're not going to make finances keep you out.
A lot of people think it's merit-based, but it's not. It's need-based, right? And I'm so grateful to that.
Merit-based is the admission. Just because you're an Arab Israeli applying from Israel doesn't mean you're going to get in. You deserve to get in.
Correct. Yeah, the admission is merit-based and the scholarship is need-based. I'm so thankful to some, white, probably man, probably rich, probably old, who donated money so that I could afford to go to college. And I'm forever thankful to that person. And I'd love to get their name.
And then I would imagine, what I remember, because I'm also an immigrant. I wasn't born in the United States. I was born in Chile. We came to the States when I was 5. And, my parents heard when I was 5 about Harvard, and they said, hey, you're going there. And it was kind of always a family dream that I would get there. I got help, thank God. I got help to go there.
Nice.
And, and then when I got there, I thought it was going to be this old, white, stuffy, a bunch of preppies and some computer nerds and maybe a few cool people here and there. Yeah. But it turned out to be filled with fascinating people of every kind. That's what they go for, an interesting student body.
Yes, I agree. For me, that was 10 times better than the education. Honestly, I don't know if you remember anything you learned at Harvard, but I remember nothing.
But you remember the conversations late at night in the dining hall, right?
Yeah, I remember the humans. That's it.
Yeah. Well, beautiful. And all right, so you had the good experience there. Now, were you making videos already, or was that on your radar?
No, my first video I made was 3rd year at Harvard. But it was just like an experiment. We did a one-off. The video did well on YouTube, but I thought not much of it. I didn't really think of myself as a video maker. Because you always associate videos or social media content creation or social media quote unquote influencers with like people that look good, people that have these like, perfect bodies, 6-pack.
Look at this humble guy. I'm sure if we ask your girlfriend, you're a good looking guy. What are you talking about?
Sal, I'm not as good looking as you are.
Now I know that you can tell untruths as well.
No, but honestly, fame is not something you think of as an option when you grow up in a village, or social media or content media. Is not
fame is never a plan. People who have fame as a plan
rarely achieve
that plan.
It is if you grow up in Los Angeles, it is a possible dream.
Right.
But
you're saying it wasn't on your radar growing up. No. So, all right. So you made one video over there. So at least you got a little bit of familiarity with the camera. So it was not a total foreign object to you. And so is it safe to say that really what got you on your way was a desire to know other places? It was about the travel?
That what got me to making videos? No, I think I love making videos because I love to create something from 0 to 1. I love I love the idea. It's so sexy to have nothing exist and you come in and something exists, right? That's it. So I could create a story, I could create a book, I could create a video, I could create a child, I could create a human, but I wanted to create a video because right now it is the most effective and fastest way to reach the most number of people in the world, period. There is no faster way to reach people with a message in the world. And so it's not out of the love for videos. I don't understand cameras to this day. I don't care about, you know, color correction and all that stuff. I just want it to look presentable. What I care about is, this is a vehicle, and I care about the destination of this vehicle. That's it.
All right. So you said a couple of things there that I want to unpack. First of all, that you loved going from 0 to 1. They are something we share with our creator. I don't know what your attitude toward faith is, but I certainly believe that God made the world. And we are souls. I mean, so, you know, it's common to say, I have a soul. I don't say that. I don't have a soul. I am a soul. I have a body. All of us are souls. We came here for a reason. And when we create things, we really partner with our creator in adding something new to this world. And not everyone is creative, but everyone has a mission here. And when you feel that need to create, I find it very beautiful. I mean, I'm a creative person. I'm a filmmaker as well as an accidental Talmudist, where I ended up, I never could have imagined that I'd be doing what I'm doing now. But that instinct to create something was there. And there's so many different ways to express that. Now, you're saying you also had a desire to create in order to communicate. So right away you said you wanted to reach a lot of people. Did you feel that you had something you wanted to say to these people, or was it just the idea of making a connection?
How honest should we go?
Well, as honest as you would like, the most, the better. The
Let's
more, the
be
better.
honest as possible. Look, the way I view the world is very simple, right? A lot of people are kept up angry, right? It's like what you call like a pressure cooker, right?
Yeah.
A lot of humans, a lot of races, a lot of nationalities are like angry at the state of the world. Like if I was, you know, I grew up as an Arab. It's not very popular to be Arab. I grew up as in the Middle East, not very popular place either. So I had a lot of kept up anger in me, you know, pent up anger. And I think, you know, the reason I started making videos is because my anger exploded. I was kind of tired of the way the world works. I was kind of tired of the way some people dictate my story for me. Some people speak on my behalf. I wanted to speak on my own behalf, on the people that also resonate with my story. And that anger transitions into two things. One, ISIS. Two, Nas Daily. You know, you can go angry and become like a terrible force for bad, right? Or you can be really angry and explode and be a force for good. And I'm very lucky, truly lucky, that Nas Daily exploded into something that is good, in my opinion. And I tell you, there's a lot of Nas Dailies in the world, right? And they've exploded into different things that are not necessarily good. So this is, you know, I think in the future, you'll see a lot more people exploding. And it's our mission to make them explode in the right way.
Well, that's beautiful. It's certainly necessary. You know, it's funny, just today, 2 stories crossed my desk. One came from a friend of mine. He's a guy I play golf with. He's a black man in his 70s. He's a lifelong professional, very successful. He served in the Marines. His son served in the Marines. You know, has some kind of a big career. And his son was out bicycling in an area that he hadn't been in before. He lives in a state where he can carry a gun, and he felt he should have it just to protect himself. God forbid something comes up. And then he had a problem with the bicycle. Something broke on the bicycle, and he was having trouble fixing it. And a policeman rolled up. And as the car was driving up, he thought to himself, oh man, I hope it's a black cop. I don't really want to have a hassle. I don't want to have a problem. I'm carrying a gun right now. Who knows what's going to happen? And it was a white cop that got out of the car. And they ended up having a really beautiful interaction. The cop really just said, oh, you know, I'm into biking too. Can I help you? The thing that needed fixing on the bike needed a tool. The cop lent him his baton. He's like, oh man, I'm a black man. The cop is below me working on the bike. I'm holding the baton. This is crazy. And afterward, the cop was curious about his gun, and they talked about guns, and they had a great interaction. And the young man said, you know, he could have imagined himself getting uptight in that situation and being confrontational as soon as the policeman arrived. But that's not his nature. He's a gentleman, and he treated the white cop like he would treat anybody, like a gentleman. And it was a great and positive story. And then his father shared the story with some of his friends. On the same day that I heard that story, I saw a video that was shared on Facebook. It was a white guy being pulled over by a white cop, and the cop pulled him over for speeding. And this guy started giving the cop so much aggravation and lip. And what are you pulling me over for? What do you need to see my ID for? Who do you think you are? Super confrontational. The cop said, all right, now you're going to get out of the car and you're going to get arrested. No, I'm not going to get out of the car, and started screaming and defying. And then the cop, said, all right, I'm going to pepper spray you. And the only reason he didn't get pepper sprayed was because he was out of pepper spray. But other policemen rolled up, and it was, it ended up being a calamity. And the video was shared on Facebook for the purpose of people's comments. And thousands were commenting on what an awful cop and what an abusing his power type of cop. When for sure, if the driver had just treated this like an interaction that he'd have with anybody and not make assumptions that just because the man's wearing a uniform, he's power hungry, it could have been a nice interaction. I tell this story because this is every day people are bumping into other people. And if we bring a spirit of positivity to that encounter, it's just going to go different than if we bring, an attitude of negativity and confrontation.
Yeah. That is very, very interesting. Yeah, I completely agree. Every event could have two very opposed outcomes, very different outcomes.
100%. So you said that you felt you grew up with an anger. It could have gone two ways. I remember bumping into Nas Daily very early in your journey when you didn't have nearly as many followers. And I loved it. I just love you. What can I say? I'm meeting you for the first time tonight, but I love your spirit of positivity and your storytelling, right? So why don't you tell my audience who's not familiar with you, tell us about the videos and how it became a project and what they are.
Yeah, so the idea was very simple. Look, I want to make a video every single day of my life for 1,000 days. I want to make videos. I want to tell a story very, very fast. People take way too long to tell a story, like 20 minutes. I'm pretty sure you can tell it in 1 minute because you're very busy. And I just want to tell you things that you should know around the world. So I went around the world to countries, not just Barcelona, not just New York, not just Los Angeles, but to Lagos and New Delhi and Vietnam and Papua New Guinea and Chile and whatnot. And I wanted to share the stories of these people that normally don't get their stories told very often. And I wanted to tell it in a way that is universal and in a way that is positive. And to my surprise, after making 200 or 300 of these videos, people started watching them. People said, I like this guy's style, even though he screams a lot in the videos. I'm willing to listen to him scream. And I was like, great. And we went from my mom and dad to my mom and dad and brother, my mom and dad and sister, then 1,000 people, then 100,000 people, then 1 million, then 10 million. Now it's 26 million. The numbers change, but the message and the mission remains the same, which is, look, there is, you're in Hollywood, right? So how it's like, you're making a film and you're telling a story of something. The Titanic, right? The Titanic is a story that was told effectively, and that's why the whole world knows about it. But before the Titanic, I don't think it was as popular. Similarly, in the world, there's like roughly 1 trillion stories to be told. Mm-hmm. And if they're told very well, I think they can change the world. And that's the mission of Nas Daily in the future.
What I could see immediately when I bumped into your show, first of all, as a filmmaker, I'm going to tell you that you're very humble, that, you kind of got a camera and you kind of know what to do with it. You really do know what to do with it. And you directed the videos beautifully. You told a story effectively. I think you're one of the first guys who were baking in the subtitles into every story and accenting one word in yellow in almost every frame. It's very effective technique. Now everybody's doing that, but I think it was you, right? Pretty much the developer.
The yellow color wasn't me. The yellow color wasn't me, but the baking subtitles in the first 3 seconds, it was me. But the yellow thing I stole. Al Jazeera. I stole it. I'm not ashamed.
I believe it was Mark Twain who said that amateurs borrow from other artists and professionals steal.
Good artists borrow, great artists steal.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's cool.
Very good. And you always had the T-shirt. Now, I believe in the beginning it said 33 or 34%.
32. Wow, you fell at 32. Thank you, man, for doing
32.
that. That is cool.
And tell me about the T-shirt. What's with the T-shirt? What does it mean?
So look, well, like when I was a software engineer back in New York, I asked myself a question, and this becomes all about religion. When am I gonna die, right? And the answer to that turns out, two people know: God and Google. And so you type on Google, life expectancy, male, United States, and it gives you 76. So on average, you will die at 76. And back then I was 24. 24 out of 76, that's 32%. So I was 32% done with life. And in my book, I was 1/3 dead. And that kind of idea kind of made me realize the importance of life in terms of percentages. Because percentages make you appreciate things a lot more than just numbers of years. Because now you're thinking that you have a finite amount of life. And so I slapped that on my T-shirt. I don't wanna, I wanted, so first of all, I don't wanna buy clothes. That is something also important. I don't want to buy.
You don't want to think about it in the morning, and you don't want to waste time on it in the afternoon.
And most importantly, I don't want to be respected. I don't want to be respected for someone else's creation. So if I buy a Louis Vuitton, I don't want to be respected because I'm wearing someone else's brand, right? Similarly, that I had my concerns with Harvard as well. I'm respected because people appreciate the Harvard brand. Because
you never mentioned it until like 800 something shows?
I mentioned it, I think, like 10% of the time, maybe 5% of the time in my videos. But I don't think that's why people follow the Nas Daily T-Shirt.
I didn't know until much later.
I hope not. Yeah. So the idea is, look, one, I don't want to buy clothes. So I'm going to have 20 of the same T-shirt. It just helps me be better. And the T-shirt, I slapped it and my percentage of life, and I was 32, and I change it every 8 months. So every 8 months, I grow by 1%. So I was 32, 33, 34. Now I'm at 37. And this says 36, but it is outdated because my 37 is in the laundry. That's the story of the T-shirt.
Now, I will say, in Judaism, we have the tradition that we wish to everybody that you should live to 120. Right, that's like Moses lived to 120, and few live to 120. So it's safe to say, at least we're not going to cut him off if we say he should live to 120.
Yeah, if it was 120, then I'd be what, 20% or less.
See, now you have a lot more space.
Right. Yeah, and then I'll get a heart attack at age 70.
You never know. That's the point. That's why I find the shirt so curious. Tomorrow is not promised.
Yes.
But I think the theme of the shirt is the same as the saying, tomorrow is not promised. It's seized today, right? That's what it's all about.
Essentially, right? And it's very devoid of emotions, right? It's very morbid. It's like death is here, death is here. And it's like, and it's not something I think will ever get wide appeal. But that's the beauty of being true to yourself. I don't care if others find my T-shirt ugly. Right, I'm making a statement for my own self, and to my surprise, 26 million people are okay with it. And so when you truly become true to yourself, you'll realize there's 100 million copies like you in the world, in any shape or any form.
So, thank you for that. Now, tell me, what's great is you're such a young guy, but you've seen so much. You've met so many people. My wife likes to say that there's two kinds of people in the world, people who divide people in the world into two kinds of people and people who don't. But beyond that, people who will get into a conversation with a stranger online at the supermarket and people who don't. So clearly you and I are the people who will get into a conversation with the stranger online at the supermarket. In my case, I imagine it's the same for you. I'm genuinely curious. I love meeting new people. And what I have found is that having in-depth conversations, it doesn't mean long conversations, but getting quickly to big questions which people rarely encounter. You know, most conversations are about dreck. They're about nothing. They're about buying and selling and vacations and this and that and work. But any stranger is so happy, I find, to get to a big question and have a real conversation. And because they're having it with a stranger, amazing things can happen.
They become honest.
What's that?
They become honest.
They become honest. So you've had, you know, conversations reaching for depth with people all around the world. Why don't you share some of the wisdom lessons that you've picked up in your journeys?
I don't know if this is wisdom. I wouldn't call it wisdom, and I wouldn't call it positive either. I think what I realized is I think we're incredibly boring. Like, it truly is. We are incredibly boring as humans, right? I think 99% of us are identical. Like 90%, 99% of everything, all my thoughts, all my feelings, all my aspirations are identical to every person's aspirations. The Brazilians are 99% similar to the Chileans. The Chileans are 99% similar to the Germans. The Germans are 99% similar to the Congolese.
As long as you don't say that the Chileans are 99% similar to the Argentinians, I can agree with you.
Yeah, I didn't know about that feud, right? As you know, what Yuval Noah Harari says, you know, it's like we all come up with stories that tells us that we are exceptional in some way or form or another. I don't think so. I don't think anyone is exceptional. And that's why in my videos, I actually try to focus on the 1% of differences to make us love each other more. Like, people in, people in India, like, do this, or how people in Israel eat like this, or people, that 1% difference is actually very cool, very interesting, and very curious for us. But I think it comes from the assumption that 99% of everything we are is identical. I think it's very important because that's how you get racism at some point, right? When someone says, "Oh, I am 100% better than you as a race," and that's ridiculous, right? I think there are cultural differences where some culture promotes outcomes that are different from other cultures. That is a fact, and I think it's all can be down to that 1% rather than the 99%.
Right, and even that 1% is not based on absolute differences; it's on differences in prioritization.
Pretty much,
I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say is that since we're essentially so similar to each other, but there's these interesting little differences, and those are interesting because there's so few of them. And that's what you show. Now, if you're going to show these things visually, so you're not focusing on differences of philosophy. The philosophy might come through, but what you're focusing on is differences in behavior, like foods that are eaten, clothes that are worn, sports that are played, places that are lived in or visited, right?
Right. So normally the focus is on the differences that are actually better. So for example, like, I would love everybody to be as polite as the Japanese. I would love everybody to be as entrepreneurial as the Israelis. I would love everybody to be as generous as the Arabs. So we focus on those differences in the hopes that we can all adopt these different differences and make it part of our culture. It's not to divide and conquer, but rather to let's copy and grow.
So give me something specific, something that was surprising and maybe a little funny or memorable.
Like from around the world?
Mm-hmm. And then how you chose to capture it in a video.
I mean, this is incredibly stupid. I'm going to choose the stupidest example.
And the one that came to mind.
The one that came to mind. I mean, in Singapore, everybody does reverse parking. Like, you would be shocked to see that. It's like, I live in Singapore, right? You don't park on two different places. You don't park with head on because it takes more space. You do reverse parking because it takes less space. It's much more space optimized, and it leaves space for other people that want to park their car in this small country that we're all trying to share. And I'm like, holy cow.
Wait, I'm not following you. What does reverse parking mean?
So when they park their cars in the parking lots, right, they do it reverse.
Oh, they always back into the spot?
Always back in. Even if it's much harder, they always back into the spot. They don't do like head on. They don't make it like tilted like this or this. It's always backing. It's always.
So they can get out easily.
They can get out easily, but also it takes less space.
Why does
And
it take less space?
because you're a lot more, they make it a lot very straight. So you park
Oh,
there.
okay. So, and they're careful to be right in the center of the parking spot.
Yeah. So you don't
Okay.
go and like colonize the other parking lot.
They're not going to be over the line.
Right. Definitely not over line. Always reverse parking.
I like that.
I've said it's the stupidest example, right? But it's like, it's such a small thing.
No, but
And
it's a nice courtesy because when they're pulling out, they're not going to hold up traffic while they're making their 3 moves to get out of the spot.
Yeah.
Right?
But they may also hold up traffic as they get into the spot.
They might, but they might also wait for the moment,
They may also
which
do
they have
that.
more control over when they're going into the spot than when they're coming out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, something about the Asian culture, there's a lot of politeness in it, which has its positives, also has its negatives, but that's just one of the examples. And I'm like, that's cool. When I go to my village now, I'm like, I want to, I want to make sure we all reverse park.
And so when you walk around the village now, when you visit your parents, they're still there?
Yes.
And do you get props in your village? Hey, there's Nas.
Well, it happens.
You know what? I'm sorry. More important, do your parents get props?
They do get a lot. They love it. They're eating this for breakfast. They love it. And I think it's nice for them to be able to, parents, if there's any kind of bragging that is allowed in the world, it's parents bragging about their kids, right? And so they do a lot of that.
Because it's all about setting up for the next generation. I mean, a culture that doesn't think about the next generation is a doomed culture.
That makes sense.
So now you chose to live in Singapore, having traveled all around the world and experienced so many cultures. How did you come to that decision?
That's a good question. I actually considered a lot of countries before I made that decision, but for what I want to do, Singapore is the best country in the world for my list of priorities. So people have different priorities in life, right? So maybe your priority is, I want to be next to the strongest government in the world. So you go live in Washington, right? It's perfect for you to live in Washington, D.C. My priority is I want to live in a place where there is harmony between the races, in a way, like where there's not a lot of like racism. I mean, there's racism in Singapore, but it's much less than what you would expect in like Israel or the United States or the Middle East or Germany or whatever. I want to live in a place that is very efficient, and Singapore is very efficient. I want to live in a place with no traffic. Singapore doesn't have traffic. I want to live in a place where taxation is fair and straightforward. So it's very straightforward taxation system. Everybody follows the same rules. I want to live in a place that speaks English, because it's important for me to speak to my taxi driver. It's important to speak to the people around me, not just live in Thailand and not know anybody, only white people, So because of that, if you do process of elimination, you'll realize there's not that many countries left that have good government, good economy, no traffic, English, and also potential, right? I feel like the next 200 years will come from Asia. They will not come from Spain, unfortunately. It's very.
Now, I've never been to Singapore. Is Singapore, is it an ancient place, or is it
Nope.
It's a relatively new country, right?
54 years old.
It's only 54 years old. I mean, what was there before?
The British.
The British. Okay.
The British, like everywhere in the world.
But so 54 years old, they're really creating their own reality. Is there a king there?
No. There's no king. It's a democracy. It's a democracy, but with a twist. So it's quite. What I like about this country is one of the smallest countries in the world, right? It's 700 kilometers squared, I think, and because there's not enough space, you have to do things differently. So I'll give you an example, and it's something I really wish sometime Israel would do and adopt. This is one of the most racist policies that exists. No, not one of the most. It's not the most. It's very intrusive. One of the most intrusive policies in the world, which is saying, look, there's 3 races in this country: Malay, Chinese, and Indian, Malay, Chinese. And what they said is, if we let you do whatever you want to do, you're going to have your own Chinese neighborhood, and then you're going to have your own Indian neighborhood, and then you're going to have your own Malay neighborhood. Just like how Harlem is 90% black.
You're going to be balkanized.
You're going to segregate yourself. Yeah.
Right.
Because you attract the people that look like you. So they said, okay, we're going to make a rule. You cannot live 100% with people of your own race. So if there's a neighborhood, 90%, like 70% of that neighborhood has to be Chinese, 15% has to be Indian, and like 10% has to be, or 15% has to be Malay, right? Has to be. So this apartment only belongs to Indians or only to Chinese. And the reason they did that is they wanted to force people to live with each other. And as someone who comes from a village that is 100% not Jewish, I'm like, we need that. We need a little bit of Jewish people next to me, and Jews need a little bit of Arabs next to them.
People need to break bread together, right?
And they're not gonna do that if you give them the freedom to separate. And so that's what they did. I'm like, who does that? There's no other country that is
right. That's what I heard about Singapore. I understand it's not a king, but it was very strongly socially engineered, right? Like big laws, intrusive laws in that sense.
Yes, exactly. Right. So it feels like a king, but in my book, it's not a king. In reality, it's not a king. It's just intrusive because of how sensitive it is for this country to exist, because there's no such thing as a Singaporean. So they have to make up this idea that Singapore is a country. Similarly, you have to make up this idea that the United States is a country. What is American, right?
It was an idea. It was the idea of the American experiment. It's an incredible idea.
How did you enforce that idea? Through a lot of propaganda, right? A lot of media, a lot of storytelling. Some of it is fake, right? When I went to America, I was like, I'm here for the American dream. And then all my Uber drivers were from Pakistan, and none of them has the American dream. I'm like, what is happening here? You got the H-1B visa. Where is your American dream? So I think storytelling is so effective in building Israel, in building the United States, in building Singapore. And sometimes you mix that up with a little bit of social engineering, and you get countries.
Spectacular. Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about faith. I mean, this is, certainly the subject of what I do on my page on Accidental Talmudists is very much about faith. It's about ancient wisdom traditions. It's about an ancient relationship with God that speaks to people today. And our whole idea is that we've been nurturing this wisdom, not just for the Jews, but on behalf of humanity. And thank God we live in a time now when it's safe and Jews can, share that wisdom with the world, to actually be a light unto the nations, not shut up in the closet, scared for our lives. So That's what we like to talk about. And that's why. So tell me about your faith. How do you approach faith?
My faith. It's a good question. Look, I was born and raised Muslim. My mom she's like the next sheikh. She's the next prophet, right? She's very religious. And for a while in my life, I was praying. For a while, I was fasting. For a while, I was believing, and I was believing I was in the right religion, because, they teach you, Islam is the right religion and all the other religions are invalid, essentially. And I was like, wow, I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky. Wow.
You were born into the only good religion.
Right? It's amazing. I felt such a stroke of luck. Then I went to India and I saw, Hindus and Buddhists and all that stuff. And I was like, what the hell? You worship a cow? One of us is right. Either I am going to heaven or you're going to heaven. But according to my people, I'm going to heaven and you're going to hell. Same applies for the Jews. Same applies for the Christians. And so at some point, it started to feel like there's exclusive roads to heaven. This is the only road, right? And every religion comes up with its own exclusive road. So when you learn about history, you see that there are 5,000 religions that were tried to be created and they didn't succeed. And one of them succeeded really early on, like Mormonism, right? My girlfriend used to be Mormon. You're like, okay, maybe religion is not that much of a spiritual thing. Maybe it is a man-made structure. And if it is, then I don't want to worship it. But at the same time, I'm still spiritual, right? I still believe that, there is no way, we developed so well without a little bit of something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the way humans are built is like, I don't know. We're like, as a race, for me, I don't necessarily believe in any religion being right. But I think it's a necessary man-made structure to make people happier or more fulfilled. And at some point in my life, I will want to be that. I will want to be happier. I will want to be more fulfilled, because I am not now. And I will accept to believe in a man-made story for my selfish interests. Maybe then I'll become Muslim.
I mean, I think that, there's not many religions are ancient. The ones that are ancient have something to offer their adherents, or they wouldn't have survived. That's for sure. There are many paths to take. I guess what I'm really asking you, because how old are you, Nas?
36%.
You're 36%. When I was 36%, I think I would have given almost an identical answer to the question that you just gave me, like almost identical. I certainly was not much of a practicing Jew. I considered myself very spiritual. I was very curious. I really wanted to learn. I didn't practice other religions, but I was confident that the world didn't pop into being out of nothing for no reason, randomly. That made no sense to me. So I felt there was a creator, and I was sure the creator is interested in the creatures, and I was certainly interested in the creator. And I was just always looking for experiences that carried that charge of the other, of access to that spiritual world, that higher world. And there are moments when it's just unmistakable that you've touched something. Sometimes it's in nature, sometimes it's very quiet, sometimes it involves the breath. Sometimes it just happens on you when you least expect it. Sometimes it's in meditation. I mean, there's just all these different paths. But what I was always very interested in is the experiential, the experience of it.
Right. I mean, maybe in a few years I will start accidental Muslim.
Maybe something will happen. So tell me, now that you've you've learned a lot. You've learned a lot. You've met a lot of people. You've seen a lot of systems that work. You've seen a lot of things that don't work. You come from one of the most fascinating, charged, explosive, beautiful, friendly, bellicose, warlike. I mean, every adjective applies to Israel. I love Israel. I can't get enough of it. I've been a bunch of times, and I love it every time I go back. I'm just so moved being there. So you're a young guy. Based on what you've learned, what you've experienced, if you had the ear of the leaders on both sides, they were going to listen to you. Okay, Nas, tell us how to solve these intractable problems. What advice would you give to both sides?
Well,
if any.
First of all,
if any.
That day will never happen. That day will never. I feel like, and this may not be a popular opinion. I don't think you can have people vote for peace. I think people will never vote for peace. I don't think the Palestinians will ever have a 51% majority saying we are voting for peace. And I don't think the Israelis will have a 51% majority saying, I want to vote for peace. It's just not going to happen. I think people will vote for their own self-interest. And I think that's why peace should be forced. It is not something that we will choose. It is something that will be forced on us. And so I would say, I would say to anyone that has power in that part of the world, force it. No matter what happens, you have to force it. And even if 90% of the population is against you, I think their grandchildren will say thank you to you, right? I wouldn't, if it was up to me, if it was truly up to me, I would remove democracy for 4 years. Okay, I will assign a dictator in Israel and a dictator in Palestine that are actually, that are not nationalistic or overly nationalistic, and then I will say, okay, force peace, this, and then let us create media to make the entire your respective country to believe in it, and then they will believe in it because humans believe a lot of stories, a lot of stories. You just have to tell it very well. Okay, we create this 4-year propaganda thing in Palestine and another one in Israel. Bam! After 4 years, everybody is eating hummus together. That would be my dream solution. Unfortunately, that
The
will never
enlightened
happen.
monarch, right? And of course, the risk is who do we trust with such power? That's the problem, right?
Right. So one thing social media has taught me is that you should not trust the crowd. So right now, with what we're doing is we're trusting the crowd. Oh, what does the crowd want? The crowd goes wherever the trend is going. So
The
unfortunately,
crowd is led by the loudest of the crowd. And they are definitely not leaders. They're just the loudest.
exactly. And you see it with social media trends. One day, everybody cares about Australian fires. The next day, everybody cares about Black lives. The next day, everybody cares about COVID, right? But the problem is the crowd is only interested for 7 days. After 7 days, the crowd disappears. No one, so you cannot let the crowd dictate via voting or what that, we should choose, literally, take that risk and assign that power to a small group of people. I guess you could call it a meritocracy or a technocracy, whatever it is. I think the world's biggest problems have very boring solutions.
Yeah.
Right. And
We
that's
know
the
what
problem.
the answers are. We just don't have the strength and the balls to do it.
Yeah. And they're just not sexy. The solution to Israel and Palestine is not sexy. So no one will follow it. People like to simplify things as much as possible, and I'm a victim of it. But at some point, governance is complicated.
Yeah.
And therefore, it should be given to the smartest of us. That's just my opinion.
Not necessarily the smartest, but the most trustworthy. Yeah.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. It's fascinating what you're saying about the crowd. Something that, always mystified me. Like when I was at Harvard, I took a class called The Bible is Literature. So I was very disconnected from religion, but I was an English major. And it was a fascinating class, just reading the Bible like any other book and studying it using the principles of English analysis, literature analysis. And so, we read the whole Bible cover to cover. And one of the things that just struck me, and I'd noticed it before, in Hebrew school when I was getting ready for bar mitzvah and, going to high holidays and being so bored and just actually reading the book in front of me. But what was wrong with the children of Israel in the desert who had just been taken out of Egypt? I mean, with miracles, 10 miracles to get out of Egypt, the sea parting so they could get across it, and God's self appearing to them at Mount Sinai, giving them everything, feeding them on a daily basis, this miraculous food, which whatever your favorite food is in the world, that's what it tasted like for every individual. And the presence of the Lord, a pillar of cloud, a pillar of fire by night. I mean, you could not be more in the bosom of the highest spiritual plane in the world.
Right.
And these people were whining and complaining and straying after other gods and straying after behaviors they shouldn't have done. It was terrible what we were doing. And I say we, as my family, we were doing that. And it's incomprehensible. How could we have been behaving that way in the bosom of the Lord when we're being given everything? And I think the answer is we weren't. Most of us were not behaving that way. We were grateful to be there and having a good time. But it was a large crowd. There were 2 million people there. And at any given moment, there was a few loud people behaving terribly and pulling the attention of everybody as if the crowd was behaving that way, and the crowd doing those things, and the crowd caring about those things. And it wasn't the crowd. It was the loudest members of the crowd. And it's so easy for those loud people to give a perception to everyone else that that's what the crowd feels and that's what the crowd wants. It's terrible.
That's sad.
It's sad. And that's why storytellers are so important, because they give the lie to that.
Yeah. The way I like to think of social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, everything, is right now we're giving everybody a machine gun, right? Here's a machine gun. That's all the powers. You have incredible power by accessing social media. Create any content you want to do. Fire any bullet you want to fire, because every social media post is like a bullet, literally a bullet. If I go make a video right now to those 26 million people that makes you hate someone, I say, oh, accidental Talmudist, oh my God, he was so racist.
I had a terrible time with him.
Right? These are bullets that you fire on social
Yeah.
media. Or you say,
Yeah.
I don't like this race. I like this race. This race is terrible for that race. Oh my goodness. So the issue is that when we give those machine guns to those loud voices, a lot of them are firing indiscriminately. They're just saying whatever the heck they want to say.
Firing up in the air where it'll be seen the most, and they have no idea where those bullets are going to land.
And they
who's
land
gonna
on
be hurt.
humans.
And they're landing on humans, of course. You shoot straight up in a crowd, you're going to kill somebody when it comes back down.
So that's why the responsibility of Nas Daily is sometimes doesn't make me sleep at night, but it's, I think I'm going to make a mistake at some point, right? I am one of those people firing. I'm trying to fire as accurately as I possibly can, but one day I'm going to fire into someone's head by mistake. And that will happen. It's only a matter of time. So when you see it happening, please remember, I'm trying my best.
I will show up for you, Nas. I will
Thank
show
you.
up for you. You can count on me.
Thank you.
Because I see you. I see your soul. I see what you're about. I see what you're trying to do, and I really honor it.
Thank you.
We're heading toward the end of our time. Let me just a couple of quick questions. You've met some heads of state. What was that like?
Yeah. I may meet one today, actually. How is it like?
Are you going to wear a T-shirt? Or are you going to dress up?
Always a T-shirt. Oh no, never. You should not respect me for what I buy. You should respect me for what comes out of my mouth, not what I put on my body. That's my number one and most irritating thing in the world. Look, I think when it comes to that, like the heads of state, I think one thing that bothered me a little bit is that there's a lot of like walls you will never be able to penetrate. It's like it feels like it's a play. It's we're acting, right? It's like a theater. You go in, you have this character, I have this character. My character in that case is thank you so much, thank you, like being appreciative and whatnot, and being like super friendly. And their character is super politician. Be careful of what comes out of your mouth. So, I met a lot of the times this is what happened. I think there's one time where it was with the president of Armenia, and I felt like he didn't give a shit about what you have to say and what you shouldn't say. So he was very, very real. So I wish, I understand why heads of states or politicians do that, right? You put on this persona and you just keep it.
They're afraid of that mistaken bullet that could hit someone in the head. They didn't even mean it. They said the wrong thing. It just has such an impact, right?
Yeah. But if they are, it's true. So it's like life is not black or white. It's always the boring middle, right? It's like, yeah, you're right. On one hand, I want them to be as honest as possible. On the other hand, I want them to be as careful as possible. So what is the right way? I don't know.
You're in Abu Dhabi now. What are you doing there?
What am I doing here? I am making videos and teaching videos. So Dubai realized, or UAE realized, the importance of content creators, right? And they realized in the Arab world, there's not enough videos. We only import videos. We're like a net importer. We're not exporting content. We're importing it. And so all the stories are coming to be fed to us. And they're like, at some point, we want to start telling our own story. And we don't want a makeup artist to tell it for us. We don't want a fashionista to tell it. We want real storytelling from our people. So they started an academy called New Media Academy. And the idea is simple. They want to create as many Nas Dailies as possible. Because the Nas Daily example is like, every success you have 100,000 other people that are inspired to do their own storytelling in their own way. So we're here helping them create the academy and teach Arabs how to tell their story in a way that is constructive and that is not divisive. And we hope one of these people will become the next Nas Daily and change the perception on Arabs, and yeah,
It's so great that these tools are available now. I mean, you're essentially, in this sense, a little bit of a film professor, right? A little bit. I've been a film professor. I ended up in LA because I went to UCLA Film School. And when I was there, that was before social media. So then we thought that to tell your story with film or video required a big crew, lots of time, lots of money, years in the making, and only a very few would actually get to the place, where thank God I got to direct a movie. Thank God I got my movie theatrically released. And, oh, did I have an opening weekend or didn't I? It just took so long. And the odds were so against anything breaking through.
And you have no control of the system.
And you have no control over the system. And there's just so many ways for everything to fall apart. And then it started changing. And so then I've really lived in both worlds. I mean, I've directed movies in Hollywood, and my audience is not as big as yours, but thank God it's somewhat sizable. And what's so great is now, I mean, it's like, I have an idea, a story I want to tell. I just tell it. And then people start to respond to it. And I'm sure that you would say that you knew more on your 1,000th film than you knew on your first. I mean, you were learning as you go constantly, right? And you're not just learning about you and how to tell stories, but you're also learning about your community and what they're looking for and how to serve them and how to connect and how to communicate. And so I always tell young people now, if you want to make movies, start making videos immediately and start growing your audience. So you learn about your audience. It's not this mystery you're going to find out about on opening weekend.
Yeah, for me. So I've been doing this for 4 years, right? I mean, if I went through the film route, I would have to go to film school for 2 years, then maybe intern somewhere for 2 years. So literally, I will just be starting now to create my own film. And in those 4 years, so far, I've created 1,100 films, right? And gained more audience than any film I could make would get in the cinemas. So democratizing voices is so powerful. And I would argue that maybe we should just not even use the word film because it really implies big stuff. Maybe someone should make a word like film or something, to imply small stuff.
Film doesn't even exist anymore. It's just a look.
Right? Yeah, it's just a look.
But are you interested in long form? Is that something that you're interested in?
So, you know how a minority complex, inferiority complex works, right? Is you always think you're not worthy of someone's time. And so the reason I started 1-minute videos is because I never thought someone would care about what I had to say for 45 minutes. And the fact that you're talking to me for 45 minutes is a new concept. It's new. It's not like I take it for granted. And so long content for me comes with the realization, one, am I interesting enough to be seen for that long? And am I worthy? Do I have what I have? Is it worthy of someone's time for 45 minutes? I know I'm worthy of 1 of your minutes. I know I'm worthy of 3, but I don't know if I'm worthy of 2 hours.
Maybe not yet.
Not yet. But we're trying with 20 minutes. But as my confidence grows, maybe we'll create longer content.
It's funny because I didn't know that I was going to be in film. Like where I grew up, that was not on anyone's radar. I had no idea who directors were. I loved movies, but I thought, I don't know who makes movies. They must be children of celebrities. Who else gets to do something like that? But at around the time, I actually went to law school before film school, and it was a great experience for me because I had no plan to become a lawyer. I realized that right away. But so I had a lot of time during law school to really figure out what I want to do while I was learning how people miscommunicate with each other. That's what I learned in law school. It's amazing how often people who disagree, even violently and passionately, actually they do agree, but they've miscommunicated. And sometimes people think they're on the same side and actually disagree a lot, but they don't realize that because they're miscommunicating. But it was during that period that I just had such a curiosity about the world, like you. And I thought, there must be a lot of people who just want to know how the world works.
Yes.
Basically I was talking about documentaries, but I didn't even think of it as documentaries. I thought there's just a curiosity about how things work that needs to be fed. And you've really fed that curiosity, Nas. I mean, you've really shown us all different kinds of solutions to common problems, but solutions offered by different cultures, solutions to what's a great meal, solutions to, how to set up a city, how to have family relationships over distances. I mean, there's so many things you covered. It's wonderful. It's just wonderful.
Thank you. And it's a learning journey for both of us. It's
Yeah.
those solutions I'm learning about as you're learning about. And it's a wonderful learning journey that we do together rather than I have the solution. I don't have them. That's why I'm in Dubai. I'm trying to find other solutions that they're doing as well to share with you. The way Dubai does water, I think you're going to love. So stay tuned in 2 weeks.
Okay.
But but I want to ask you a question actually. What is the film you've always wanted to create right now in this day and age?
Wait, you asked me two questions. What is the film I've always wanted to create? And what is the film I want to create right now?
Okay, so let's make it two questions.
Well, I'll tell you, the film that I've always wanted to create, I mean, if I could go to any one moment in history, I mentioned it earlier, I guess I was there when God appeared to the world, to 2 million people and said, hey, here's what it's all about. This is who I am. I made you. I love you. I care about you. You need to know this. I'm going to go back into hiding because I'm not going to live for you. You guys have to work this out. I'm going to give you some tools that are going to be very useful to you. But that moment, it must have been so amazing, and to capture that moment in a way that's, that feels authentic. I don't know if it can be done. That's the movie I guess I always wanted to make. The movie that I want to make right now, that my wife and I are working on, is much more fun and simple, and it's a murder mystery. We love mysteries, and the films that we've made have been sort of highfalutin and ambitious in other ways, and I wouldn't call them genre pieces. And this is a genre piece. And what's funny about genre, it's sort of like the structure of the 1 minute video. Somebody might have said to you at the beginning, well, Nas, how much can you do in 1 minute? It's so limiting. It's just 1 minute. It has to be exactly 60 seconds. It's going to have you in it. It's going to have these words on the bottom. I mean, how many different things could you do? And the creativity within a structure is endless, and the creativity within a mystery is endless. And I think people love mysteries. They're drawn to mystery.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool. What's the process like to actually go from zero to launch? In your world, I'm fascinated by that.
Something that I always tell young writers, very important. If you think you're going to write a screenplay or a book, okay, I've got some time. I'm going to page 1. I'm going to start writing. You're setting yourself up for failure. It's just not going to work. The way you tell a story in long form is to grow it. You start by telling it in 1 sentence, and then you tell it in 10 sentences. And then you tell it in 2 pages, and then in 10 pages, and 20 pages, and 100 pages. And every time it grows in scope, you're still expressing the same idea, but filling in more and more of the details, the characters, the relationships, the stuff that's going to make it tick. But like if you imagine a tree, a young tree looks quite similar to an old tree. It's just gotten bigger, but it gets bigger in every direction, not just up and down. So you got to grow the story.
That's cool. So a film starts as a 1 minute video.
Yes, it does. Yes, it started as an idea, right? That you had. So already when you went from your idea to a thing that exists in the world and that people see, that's the biggest step of all. Growing it to a bigger scope is less difficult than going from 0 to 1.
That's cool. That's cool, man. So I wish you the best of luck, and do send me that, the film when it's done.
We'll invite you to the premiere. Maybe you'll be in LA for it. You can bring your girlfriend. What's her name?
Aline.
Aline. Well, Nina and I would love to have you and Aline over for a Shabbos dinner.
We would love to.
When you're in LA. Please stay safe in your travels. Thank you for being our esteemed guest here in the Accidental Talmudist podcast and our live show that's happening right now. For people who are curious to tell their friends about it and share it, it's going to be on all the major podcasting platforms. Nas, we wish you the best of luck. May you realize all your dreams. I think that, you're not 36% done. I think in many ways, you've accomplished a huge amount and you're just getting started.
Sal, thank you so much for inviting me on the podcast. It's been my honor, and I hope we meet in real life when I come to Los Angeles one day. After,
and we'll you know what? We'll make a video together. We'll do something together.
Let's do that.
All right. All the best, Nas. Take care.
Thank you.